Well, David Hoffman is a sought-after speaker around the country because of his phenomenal success in business. He often surprises the audience, telling them the key is relationship, not negotiation or working the hardest. And what David has overcome is an incredible story. His book is called Relationships Over Rules. David, welcome to the program. So glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, Andrew.
You're really, I'll brag on you for a moment, because you probably won't. You're a real enormous success, real estate and other ventures. But what you overcame from your childhood is incredible. And it really starts with your mom. She got a diagnosis at 17 that was devastating, right? Tell us about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I forget, because of all the blessings the Lord has given me throughout my life, Andrew, I forget everything that I went through. But everyone has a story. You know, my mom had MS starting at a young age. And when she was pregnant with me, the doctors told her, they warned her that something really bad will happen most likely if she delivers me. She might be paralyzed, she could even die. She chose a life, thankfully, and she became paralyzed from the waist down. And that changed everything. When I was 2, my father left and took me with him. When I was 5, he remarried. And I've learned to forgive. I understand that hurt people, but there was a lot of abuse and neglect. Well,
and as you put it in your book, I guess a kind way of saying it regarding what you were going through at this point is your stepmother wanted a husband, not necessarily a son, right? And you endured quite a lot of things that a child should not endure.
Right, never, absolutely, Andrew. Nothing physical, more of neglect, a lot of time in my room, a lot of time alone, wondering why I can't live with my mom. I'd see her 3 or 4 times a year, and she was so beautiful inside and out. She never complained, and I'd wonder, you can't move your legs. You have some help here, but why can't I live with you? The only unconditional love for decades I ever felt was with my mother.
Yeah, and you miss your mother terribly, and your dad and his new marriage. I know you were on your own to find food, and I think you're sometimes ate dog food, drinking out of toilets. I mean, this is, you know, we won't get into the nitty-gritty, but it was rough. It was a rough childhood.
Yeah, definitely. When I look back, you know, you don't want that for anyone, but I also recognize people have it a lot worse. But I realize now, as a believer, Andrew, I realize that God was working in those seasons. You know, Romans 8:28, we know it, but he was working all things together for the good of those who know him and love him. And he gave me grace, because I didn't even know him and love him back then.
That's an incredible perspective. So, you know, at a young age, what are you, 8, 9, 10, you become an entrepreneur because you really had to, right?
Yeah,
so what were you doing?
Yeah, at 8 years old, you know, the toilet water came because my stepmother came home one day and I heard her from downstairs asking if David left his room. And the babysitter said, yeah, I heard the bath water running, but he wasn't supposed to take a bath. I was thirsty, Andrew. And so I realized, oh, wow, oh boy, what do I do now? So I just moved to the toilet. And the same with the dog food. You know, the piece of the bread, the fruit, the cookies were all being counted, because that meant that I left my room, but no one was counting the dog food.
So you say to yourself, I'm kind of on my own here. I'll start making money myself. You do kind of different types of jobs, and then it kind of trains you to become this entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely. Starting at 8 years old, I'm raking leaves, I'm washing cars, I'm mowing lawns, I'm shoveling snow, growing up in New York. and so I'd shovel my driveway first. I didn't mind, because, again, that adversity, when you're in it, you're not happy and you're struggling with that strife in your life. But it gives you a unique perspective to have gratitude for all the little things that the Lord is doing. And so I'm shoveling my driveway, and I'm just happy I'm outside. I'm getting fresh air. I'm not in my room. You know, when Paul's in his jail cell, he had that focus on Jesus. I didn't have Jesus, even though he was there. I didn't know him at that time.
Well, you grew up Jewish, and I think you memorized the Torah, right? I mean, it was there's, you know, your book, Relationships Over Rules. These were rules. But when you became a success in real estate, and you did other ventures with pro athletes and contracts and all these things, right? There's a lot we couldn't even get into. But you were invited to church, right? You weren't a Christian at this point. And what happened?
Yeah, you know, I hit the ground running when I moved to Charlotte, and then the economy crashed in late 2008, and it was tough for many. And one of my dear friends, he said, all right, Dave, let's just go to church. I said, no, I'm going to push off on that. I'm going to push off. He said, no, let's go. You have time. You have time on your hands. So I went to church, and I felt like the pastor was talking to me, Andrew. You know, were you raised Jewish? Did you go through a challenging childhood with a lot of abuse and neglect? Have you challenged the Lord? You know, is your name David? And it was a big church too, but I really felt like he was talking to me. The Lord wanted me to hear this message more than anyone. I went to home and I was crying, and I said, I'm just tired, God. I'm just tired. The economy had crashed. This is the only thing I had going. It was an idol at the time, but the only thing I had going was the relationships I'd built in real estate, because I'd lost everything. And I felt like the Lord had never provided. I didn't know him. And I heard God loud and clear audibly that night. People might chuckle, but I do believe that when you listen, he speaks in different ways. He said, you've tried your way for 30 years, give it to me now. I didn't think much of it. 2 days later, I go to lunch with the same friend. And we just went to a Chinese buffet, very low-key, casual. He had started as a client, became a dear friend, Andrew. And he brought a Bible. I said, "What's that?" And for me, I'm kind of, I'm kind of scared of that. It's Superman with his kryptonite. I was like, no, I just need to stay away from God. I have to do it all myself. I have to hold on tight. I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate. Why God? Why me? Why God? Why didn't you provide? Why tragedy? And my friend Justin looked at me, Andrew, and he said, "You've tried your way for 30 years. Give it to God." The exact same words that the Lord said to me Sunday night. I said no, that it was God speaking. And I started crying. I said, okay, I'm done. I'm done trying to hold on tight and figure it out on my own. Life has not been all hills since then. There's been many valleys. We're not promised all bliss here, but the next day I did meet my wife.
Yeah. Got beautiful children now, and you take your love for the Lord, you really, let's talk business for a moment, because you're very successful in your business ventures. How does your Christian faith play into that? And talk about the relationship factor.
Yeah, absolutely. I got asked recently why I value relationships so much, and it was an easy answer, Andrew, because I never had them. Sometimes you value what you want most. And so for me, I've always appreciated anyone who is a positive person, who is a giving person, who is a respectful person. A tough relationship's okay, but not toxic. And so when I moved to Charlotte, I just wanted to make a friend. And so over time, that one friend became 5, became 50, became 100, but not a friend like Facebook or Instagram, a genuine friend where you give more than you take, a genuine friend where you don't fake it till you make it. You need to be the expert for that friend. You have to meet them where they are. It's about them, not you. And so they'll reciprocate. Many times they'll reciprocate. The business world, you hear often people don't want to mix business and personal, but if they know that you have time for them, and they know that you're actually focusing on being the expert, they know you care. But if they know you have time for them, and then they know that you care enough to help them succeed more than yourself, then they actually want to work with their best friend. Just like, hopefully my wife got to marry her best friend. I definitely married my best friend.
Yeah. And it is really it's about our relationship with Christ too, and not the rules to follow. It kind of spreads around life. Tell me about, as we wrap it up here, a lot of pain from childhood, obviously, but you took a major step. And we hear people say this, that forgiveness is so key. You were released. So you had a phone call with your dad years later, right?
Yeah, and my father called and he said, I know I did a lot of things wrong. I took you away from your mom. I left my wife when she was ill. I should not have done that. I put you in a tough situation. But shortly before that, my stepmother apologized. And because I had just given my life, I just felt filled with grace that I was given that I needed to pass forward. And so, Andrew, it was easy to forgive. And then once I had kids, I just had this heart for seeing that no one's perfect and that I've been forgiven and that I make mistakes. And so when I see my kids struggling or being disobedient, I think, I'm never going to leave you. Hopefully, I would never leave my wife. But I can see how someone who's hurt could hurt someone else. It's not okay, it's wrong, but I just pass forward that grace. But you don't have to keep people. So I forgave, but I didn't forget or keep.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make the same mistakes. I want to break the chains.
It's amazing how God has had this redemptive work in your heart with the childhood. And I want to let you folks know, the book is called Relationships Over Rules, and it gets more into David's childhood and then how he found Christ and Christ healed his heart. And then if you want to succeed in business or whatever your venture is, there's some really, really great principles in here that will help you do that. David, appreciate being with us.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.